Thank you for joining us here at the First Alert Desk on Atlanta News First Plus. We are catching you up with some breaking news starting out with this morning. An hours-long standoff overnight in Clayton County led to an officer being shot along with the suspect. Atlanta News First Don Shipman is with the First Alert breaking news tracker in the neighborhood where this standoff and shooting happened.
This all started with a 911 call for a shooting just about 6 miles from here. Police got there and they tracked the suspect to this neighborhood. Now, within the last hour, I've watched as more crime scene units have come up to the scene. I want you to take a look. It's still very active. You can see Clayton County Police. You can see the crime scene unit right there. There are more beyond that police tape right there, along with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They are lead on this investigation now. Take a look at the video from overnight. You can see the SWAT team units moving in. Clayton County Police say that the suspect went into a house here along Summer Chase Drive and wouldn't come out. After making many attempts to coax him out, SWAT moved in. Police say that gunfire was exchanged inside the house, but some of those bullets made their way outside the house because in the process, a Clayton County officer who was positioned on the outside of the house, establishing a perimeter, so a bit of a distance, was shot in the leg. The suspect was also shot.
The original shooting scene was up in 300 block of Arrowhead Boulevard. I don't have information on that at this time, but we do believe he knew someone in this area. Obviously, whether he lived here or not, I can't confirm that.
And that suspect was shot multiple times, listed in critical condition at Grady Memorial Hospital. The police officer shot in the leg. He's listed in stable condition. We're here in Clayton County. Don Shipman, Atlanta News First.
And a family waiting a year and a half with no answers, but now 2 men are facing charges in the death of 21-year-old Valdosta State University student Brianna Long. She was killed while closing up a bar in 2023. Atlanta News First Sarah Hammond reports from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
The GBI says 2 men, a 21 and 23-year-old, now face malice murder charges. Both of these men are already behind bars on separate, unrelated cases. Now, the GBI says that this all happened in October of 2023 when Brianna Long, who is from Paulding County, and another man were closing down the Pier Bar in Valdosta around 2:30 in the morning. And the GBI says they believe the 2 men now accused in her murder, Sion Clayton and Kamoni Green, were in Remerton that night looking for someone else related to an ongoing gang dispute. Now, as shots rang out outside the bar, Long was hit and killed. The other man was injured. An assistant special agent in charge, Zach Johnson, with the GBI's Region 9 office, said at the time they were doing everything they could to catch the people responsible.
At the end of the day, our goal is not necessarily to make a quick arrest on a case. Our goal is to have a successful prosecution that leads to a murder conviction for anyone who had a part in Brianna's death.
Long was set to graduate last year. She was studying dental hygiene, and the GBI says they do expect to add additional charges. At the GBI headquarters, Sarah Hammond for Atlanta News First.
And this is a story we've been covering really for quite some time with every development. The latest on this, DeKalb County families preparing to pay more money for their water bills. The county commissioners have approved an increase each year through the year 2034. Atlanta News First Blake Devine reports from Decatur.
This will raise residents' water bills every year for the next decade. Right now, the current water bill in DeKalb County hovers around $70, but coming up, it'll be around $77 each month with this rate increase. Then $80 for the next year and $93 the following, but by 2034, residents will pay upwards of $180 every month for their water. Tuesday afternoon, DeKalb County commissioners approved this 10-year plan. We caught up with one woman who works with DeKalb Water Watch, an advocacy group supporting residents experiencing high water bills. She endorsed this rate increase because the county also approved relief efforts to help low-income and fixed-income residents, saying this is a step forward for improved infrastructure and trust in local government.
We hope that this can be a bridge that has a strong foundation between the residents and the administration, and we hope that that door remains open for the long term.
These increased rates will generate roughly $4 billion to replace DeKalb County's aging infrastructure, and these rates will go into effect starting on July 1st. Reporting in Decatur, Blake Devine, Atlanta News First.
And more changes coming to the Internal Revenue Service. The acting head of the IRS says he plans to retire come Friday. The sudden departure comes as the agency gets ready for tax filing season. Doug O'Donnell was elevated to the head role after IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel stepped down as President Trump took office last month. Now, the agency's chief operating officer will temporarily lead the agency. President Trump has said previously he wants former Congressman Billy Long of Missouri to head the IRS. At the same time, the IRS is in the middle of massive cuts and layoffs, which leaves many of you, I'm sure, wondering, what does that mean for your return and refund? We are in the middle of tax season. Karen Kaifa is in Washington with what taxpayers need to know.
Last week, the IRS was expected to start layoffs of more than 6,000 employees as part of the Trump administration's broader cuts to the federal workforce at the agency's busiest time of year.
We know that when the IRS is understaffed, as it was in the 2010s, it makes refunds slower. It means they have a hard time answering their phones if you've got questions.
Vanessa Williamson, a senior fellow in governance studies at the Brookings Institution, says the cuts could impact important taxpayer resources.
There's some evidence that a lot of the cuts are going to come to people who help small business owners, who have some of the most complicated taxes of anyone. So if you haven't filed, I recommend you file as soon as possible.
Tom O'Sabin, Director of Tax Content and Government Relations at the National Association of Tax Professionals, says amid leaner IRS staffing, taxpayers should try to limit the need for person-to-person contact with the agency.
What it means is if there's any possibility to electronically file your return, do so. Whether you're using a tax professional or you're filing or you're on your own, or you use the direct file system, which is relatively new at the IRS, try to submit your return electronically.
O'Sabin adds that careful preparation can also minimize omissions and errors that could take longer to correct. And no matter the headlines, he says, to complete that return.
In reading a lot of these social media posts and the like, there's been some talk about waiting to file or don't bother to file. I think that's a fool's recommendation.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
And we have a lot still ahead today on Atlanta News First Plus, starting with the AM hours. Join us here at 10:30. We are going to take you out live to a news conference involving Fulton County, as well as later on at 11:30, the DeKalb County CEO expecting to lay out her legislative priorities. That all leads up to Atlanta News First at noon, and then come back to us after our noon newscast. We're going to talk about Braves broadcast history and give you the latest on what's been going on in Georgia politics. But for now, the news doesn't stop, and neither does the weather. And this week, if you've gotten a chance to step outside, you may have felt the near-record heat that has been in the forecast. First Alert meteorologist Rodney Harris joining me now to talk about that and what's coming up ahead.
So near record heat is definitely the story today, Maria. It's 62 degrees outdoors right now, and we may be well on our way to the low 80s later on this afternoon. The official high today is 79. So earlier this morning, Maria, I dropped that high. We initially had 78 for your high today. By the way, hello. I'm First Alert meteorologist Rodney Harris. Initially, we were at 78 degrees, and then at 9 o'clock, the temperature really jumped a little bit more than what we thought. So I updated the high to 79, really close to 80. And the reason why that is going to be interesting is because 80 is the record for today, which was set in 1996. So we may break that. If not, we will certainly get close. I can tell you we're still trending warmer right now at 62 degrees in the city of Atlanta. So here's a look at what you can expect. Highs today, again, in the upper 70s. Low 80s are not impossible. The normal for this time of year is 61 degrees, so we're almost 20 degrees above average later on this afternoon here, not only in Atlanta, but in all of North Georgia. So here we go with some information. Since we're so close to 80, I wanted to point this out. We typically don't see our first 80 in Atlanta until March 30th, so we are well ahead of schedule if that does in fact happen. The earliest we've ever seen a first 80 in Atlanta was back in 2019. That was when it was on February 7th. So you can see that wasn't that long ago. And, you know, it's rare. It's rare to see the 80s at all in February. I did some research, and going all the way back to 1990, which was 35 years ago, We only had 4 days in February where the temperature was 80 degrees or warmer. Only 4 days in 35 years. So that gives you perspective on how rare it is to see the 80s this time of year. So the reason why it's so warm is because of high pressure that's south of us. And I explained this on Atlanta News First earlier this morning. But high pressure, the wind flows clockwise around those highs. So that's bringing our wind out of the Gulf of Mexico. It's a warmer wind, and that's aiding in the temperatures that you're seeing out there today. Now, this specific pattern won't stay in place for long. That high is going to slide eastward over the next 24 hours, and that will allow a weak little front to move into North Georgia on Thursday. This is not the same type of front that we were seeing earlier this year that was really cooling us off. It's a weak front. It's just strong enough, though, to give us an opportunity for a shower or two. So I do want to show you the high-resolution forecast model for tomorrow. It looks like Thursday in the morning it's completely dry, but by lunch, a couple of showers will be possible in the mountains from Ellijay to Hiawassee to Blue Ridge to Morganton. That's around lunch. And then those showers will drop into metro Atlanta around 1, 2, 3 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. So if you are picking up your kids from school on Thursday afternoon, there's only a 20% coverage, so I do believe that it's mostly dry, but don't be surprised if you see a few showers out there. Again, that is between about 1 and 3 o'clock on Thursday for those of you picking up the kids from school. And then look at this. By like 5, 6 o'clock, that rain, whatever does develop, will be completely out of here. So pretty fast-moving system. So here we go with your 7-day forecast, and I love the 7-day. You're not going to find too much wrong with this. 79 today. Again, 80 is not impossible under complete sunshine. We start at 52 on Thursday morning and up to 67 Thursday afternoon, 20% chance of a few showers. And then after that system passes us by on Thursday, it's back to smooth sailing for both Friday and Saturday. We will be in the 60s each day. We have lowered the temperature on Sunday to 55. It looks like we'll get a little quick blast of cooler air that'll move in at the end of the weekend. So that's really the only difference in your weekend. Both Saturday and Sunday will be dry, but Saturday will be warmer, and it'll be notably cooler on Sunday. And then we're back into the 60s for the beginning of next week. We have that 20% chance of a shower on Thursday. And then our next best chance of rain after that will really be like next Wednesday. We have another 20 in there on Tuesday. You may see a shower or two in the mountains, but our next cold front after Thursday will really be on Wednesday. So about a week from now is when our rain chances will start to go back up. But until then, I mean, it's a pretty decent 7-day forecast with temperatures essentially at or above average except for Sunday. So we do hope that you can get out and enjoy the weather, especially today. First Alert meteorologist Courtney Jacobazzi, she's working on an updated forecast for you right now, and you can watch that on Atlanta News First at noon. Of course, you can always find your latest forecast in the First Alert Weather app. We hope you guys have an amazing Wednesday, and until next time, we'll see you soon.